We're going to begin this hour in the Middle East, where the conflict between the U.S. and Iran appears to be escalating. U.S. Central Command says it completed a 9th consecutive night of strikes against Iran on Sunday, targeting military command centers, air defenses, and missile and drone launch sites. The ceasefire between the two sides now appears over, while the number of casualties climbs.
The Pentagon is now sharing the identities of the 2 U.S. service members killed in the Iranian attack on Jordan on Friday. They are 25-year-old Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan and 19-year-old Private Isabella Gonzalez. Yesterday, the U.S. military announced it recovered unidentified human remains while searching for an American service member reported missing after that same attack. CENTCOM also said another U.S. service member was killed in a separate incident in Iraq on Saturday. That brings the total number of U.S. personnel killed in the months-long war to 17. Colonel Steve Warren is standing by with analysis, but we begin with NBC's Alice Barr in Washington with the latest details. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. President Trump said the latest strikes against Iran were in honor of the fallen service members, as he acknowledged that the mission has gotten larger than originally expected. Overnight, a 9th straight night of U.S. strikes on Iranian military targets. And as the war ramps up, so does its costs. The U.S. military said Sunday it recovered remains while searching for an American service member missing since an Iranian missile and drone attack in Jordan that killed 2 other U.S. service members on Friday. The remains now being examined to determine if they match the missing.
We hit them very hard again tonight. And we did that in honor of the probably 3 as opposed to 2 great patriots.
Separately, U.S. Central Command said an American service member was killed Saturday in Iraq during a controlled detonation of ordnance from a downed Iranian drone that hadn't initially exploded. At least 17 U.S. service members have been killed since the war began nearly 5 months ago. President Trump acknowledged this has become a bigger job than what he initially told the American people would take just a few weeks.
What we're doing now is we're ending any chance where they could have a nuclear missile. If you look at it, after a week and a half, not 4 weeks, a week and a half, 2 weeks, we stopped them from probably, but I don't want to have the word probably.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Sunday night the U.S. is still open to negotiation, but that the Iranians appear internally split.
They continue to send signals that they want to talk, that they want to negotiate, but their behavior is what we're responding to. And their behavior is they're launching missiles and drones against ships, including tonight.
Adding that the U.S. will respond as long as Iran keeps trying to control the Strait of Hormuz. Amid the renewed fighting, gas prices hit $4 a gallon on average nationwide again this morning. While on another note, President Trump said the new Air Force One that was gifted by Qatar will be sent back in for maxed out upgrades following concerns about the plane's security systems raised after the president unexpectedly took off from the NATO summit in Turkey in the old Air Force One, just as hostilities with Iran were heating back up. Joe and Savannah.
Alice, as for the deaths of these American service members over the weekend, how does that change the picture of this war now nearly 5 months in?
Yeah, it certainly raises the pressure on President Trump, who's been trying to say that this war is winding down. Difficult to say that when casualties are going the other direction. And as he put it, the latest strikes are in honor of the latest fallen soldiers. But lurking behind that wording is retaliation. Is the U.S. going to step up more to retaliate? The last cluster of American soldiers killed was back in March when the war was at a different phase. And the more American service members we see dying, the more you wonder if you're headed back there.
All right, Alice Barr in Washington, thank you.
For more on this, let's bring in NBC News military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Colonel, good morning. So as the U.S. conducts these consecutive nights of strikes, Iran has now expanded its retaliatory strikes to neighboring U.S. allies, in part at least showing that they still have the capability to do so. Do you see this expanding into a broader regional war?
I think we're very much at risk for this expanding into a broader war. What we're seeing right now, Alice recently just talked about how there's some pressure on the commander-in-chief maybe to find a way out. But simultaneously, I think the deaths of these tragic deaths of these service members gives the commander in chief a little more space to increase the level of violence that he brings to the table against Iran. And we're starting to see that a little bit. Expanded target sets, striking IRGC locations as opposed to just striking radar sites, et cetera. So at this point, I think we're sort of in a loop where this is going to continue to grow before it begins to shrink again.
Colonel, let's talk more about that. Targeting military infrastructure, Central Command saying that's including also what command centers, air defenses. What does that tell you about the U.S. strategy right now at this point in the war?
Right. I think these last 9 days began as a punishment strikes, as a series of punishment strikes because Iran was targeting ships. I think that has now grown a little bit to where these are now becoming pressure strikes, right? We are trying to increase the pressure on Iran to get them to change their behavior, to get them to stop striking ships in the straits and to get them back to the negotiating table. So this is slowly and steadily increasing, and I think you're going to see that continue over the next few days as we expand these target lists, begin to hit more military infrastructure. Presumably, we've already hit some bridges, so that's dual use infrastructure, and I think you're going to see that continue over the next several days.
Colonel, it's been more than a week since the U.S. began ramping up its attacks against Iran. Does not appear that that's slowing down anytime soon. We also have the Strait of Hormuz as this continued major sticking point. It actually saw traffic at its lowest level over the weekend in weeks. What do you think it would take for both sides to de-escalate at this stage in the war?
Well, there has to be an incentive to de-escalate. And at this point, there is no easily identified de-escalation incentive. So what I predict we'll see right now, both sides are trying to pressure the other side into crying uncle, essentially saying, okay, I'd like to de-escalate. That hasn't happened yet. We've seen the Iranians now. They've killed service members in Iraq, in Jordan. They're sending missiles all throughout the region. So the Iranians are escalating, trying to pressure the United States. Simultaneously, the United States is escalating, trying to pressure the Iranians. So right now, this is a punching match right now. And we have to wait and see. Eventually, something will emerge. Not clear what that will be, but I think we're in for several more days of these kind of intensifying strikes, Savannah, unfortunately.
All right, Colonel, good to see you as always. Thank you so much.
In political news, there are new developments in some key races that'll shape this year's midterms.
Yeah, in Maine, former state Senate President Troy Jackson is now on track to become the Democratic Party's pick to take on GOP Senator Susan Collins. That is after all of Jackson's most prominent opponents dropped out of the contest over the weekend.
Here to talk about that and some other key races, NBC News political reporter Megan Brand. Megan, good morning. So how did we get to this point in the Maine race, which is moving rapidly, and where does it go from here?
Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, over the weekend we had 4 major Democratic candidates dropping out of the race. It came as Democrats were electing delegates over the weekend that would later go on this upcoming Saturday to vote for whoever would be Graham Plattner's successor. So let me walk you guys through who exactly dropped out. We had Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. We had Nirav Shah, who's the former director of Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention, former congressional staffer Jordan Wood, and Dan Kleban. He is the co-founder of the Maine Beer Company. Now, the dropouts came as Troy Jackson supporters won most of the delegate seats over the weekend. So according to his campaign, Jackson supporters won 481 out of 500 delegate seats that were being voted on this past weekend. So looking ahead, next Saturday, that is when 601 delegates are going to vote on the next successor, which appears now, there appears to be a lot of support consolidating around Troy Jackson. Now, while it seems that most of the delegates are Jackson supporters, they're not required to vote for Jackson, but certainly right now there's a lot of support consolidating around him to be the person to face off against Senator Susan Collins in that must-watch race this fall. It's going to be crucial for Democrats if they have a chance at ultimately flipping the Senate blue.
Megan, another race that we're following is in Michigan. The Democratic Party's biggest progressive figures, they turned out over the weekend to support the Senate candidate there, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. Now, his main rival for the party's nomination is Representative Haley Stevens. It's a contest that's shining light really on campaign funding. So tell us about that and what we heard over the weekend there.
Yeah, so over the weekend, you had two major progressives going to campaign with El-Sayed. So you had Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They traveled to Michigan for that rally. Now, they've all been critical of millions of dollars in spending on pro-Stevens ads, including, that's from outside groups, including a super PAC associated with AIPAC. Now, as part of this campaign, too, support for Israel or criticism of support, financial support for Israel has become a major topic in this campaign. So El-Sayed's been very critical of financial support for Israel. Take a listen.
So it is time for us in this country to stand up and decide that we are no longer going to send unconditional foreign military aid to foreign governments. Not Israel, not Egypt, not Jordan, not Saudi Arabia. I want my tax dollars in Michigan. I want good schools in Michigan. I want good roads in Michigan. I want health care in Michigan. I want child care in Michigan. I want my money spent in Michigan.
Stevens supports a two-state solution for Israelis and Palestinians, and she's also gotten some prominent endorsements as well, including from Senator Gary Peters. He's the incumbent senator right now who's not running for re-election. He's endorsed her to be his successor, and also from senators including Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, Senator Ruben Gallego, and Senator Chris Coons, guys.
Megan, while we have you on the Republican side, we're following the race to succeed the late South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, who passed away just over a week ago. What's the latest there?
Yeah, Congressman Ralph Norman announced in a Fox News interview that he plans to jump into the race. Now, in that interview, he expressed support for President Trump's priority of the Save America Act, which would reshape how elections are operated in the U.S., though there's not enough support right now in the Senate for that to ultimately move forward. He also expressed support for killing the filibuster as well. Now, just a day earlier, though, President Trump had said that he endorsed Senator Darlene Graham, that's Senator Lindsey Graham's sister, who is filling his seat for the remainder of his term. President Trump said that he endorsed her to run for a full term. Now, in that Fox News interview, Congressman Ralph Norman said that he spoke to President Trump to basically ask for his blessing in this race. And he also said in that interview that if Senator Darlene Graham does ultimately run for another term, that still would not impact his decision to not run in the race, saying that he would still continue to run, guys.
All right, Megan Brand in Washington. Megan, thank you.
Well, controversial social media influencers Andrew and Tristan Tate are in federal custody after U.S. officials arrested the brothers in Miami Saturday. The arrests are connected to criminal cases in the United Kingdom, where authorities are seeking to extradite both men to face rape and other charges.
Andrew Tate now faces more than 30 counts stemming from alleged offenses between July of 2010 and August of 2017. Those counts include rape, assault, sex trafficking, and child pornography offenses. His brother, Tristan Tate, also faces multiple counts, including rape, sex trafficking, and sexual assault. They both deny any wrongdoing.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas joins us now from the UK with more. Danny, good morning. So British authorities are saying that these new charges follow the discovery of additional evidence. What do we know about that and what led up to the arrests?
Well, according to what's been published by authorities here, the Bedfordshire Police received a fresh file of new evidence, new alleged victims or complainants, bringing the number of complainants from 3 up to, I believe, 7, and dramatically increasing the number of charges up to over 40. So these are charges that initiated the U.S. Marshal Service to go out and initiate extradition proceedings.
So, Danny, the U.S. Marshal Service says the warrant remains sealed right now. Why would details of the charges be kept under seal at this point?
The charges themselves are not under seal. They are published on the website by law enforcement authorities here in the UK. But it's very common for the arrest warrant for the U.S. Marshals to be kept under seal because when you think about it, extradition often involves fugitives. Fugitives are people who are avoiding justice. So you don't want to telegraph that we're looking for fugitives by filing that in a court document. So the charges themselves are known and public. The actual arrest warrant for the marshal, it's routine for that to be sealed, and then it will be unsealed at the first appearance. It's kept sealed so you don't telegraph to fugitives to go and run and go hide somewhere else.
The brothers are now awaiting extradition proceedings in the U.S. Is that a slam dunk? Does that mean they will go to Britain to face trial?
Legally, it should be a slam dunk, but it likely won't be, and here's why. Extradition, at least international extradition, is the product of a treaty between the United States and whatever country is requesting it. We have a treaty with the UK. It's a powerful treaty. And by the way, some countries will not extradite their own citizens. Under the treaty, these folks can be extradited. But here's where it's tricky. If Andrew Tate has been a vocal supporter of President Trump, and there are a few ways the executive branch could slow down or even stop these proceedings. Number one, the DOJ has to file a complaint. It's just a formality, but they may choose not to or delay it. Number two, ultimately, no matter what the judge does here in the States, the Secretary of State has to sign and execute a warrant. And that could die on the Secretary of State's desk if the administration decides these are defendants that they want to prevent their extradition. Now, I couldn't find an instance of this ever happening in history, but at least under the law, it's possible.
Beyond the potential politics of this, we should note that the Tates, they're dual citizens in the U.S. and the UK. What does that mean for extradition proceedings? Could it complicate things at all?
No, that's least likely to complicate these proceedings. Some countries are reluctant to hand over their own citizens. The U.S. loves handing over their own citizens. I'm saying that as glibly because really we're very, very open to entering into extradition treaties with not just the U.K., but lots of countries. So we will turn over our citizens if the criteria are met. So, for example, if a foreign country has something outlawed that the United States would never make a crime, that might be grounds to refuse extradition. But the mere fact that you hold a U.S. passport or are a dual citizen will not protect you like a force field from extradition proceedings. Their better argument is that these charges are old and really a pitch to the administration to say, hey, just slow this down and maybe throw up some roadblocks so we can stay here as long as possible.
All right, Danny Cevallos, thank you so much.
Much of the country is cleaning up this morning after a weekend of deadly storms. Severe flooding created headaches out west, here in the Northeast, and also in Texas Hill Country. That's where at least 2 people were killed. Experts say nearly 1 trillion gallons of rain has fallen in parts of the Lone Star State since last week. Now, Governor Greg Abbott is issuing a major disaster declaration and is asking for federal help for some hard-hit areas. Here in New York City, heavy rain flooded neighborhood streets. Emergency crews had to rescue several drivers who got trapped after making that all too common mistake trying to drive through the floodwaters. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro has more. Valerie, good morning.
There was no shortage of severe weather over the weekend, with flash flooding claiming the lives of at least 5 people in Utah. And now there is a tropical storm system brewing off of Florida's Gulf Coast. Severe weather making a return, hammering parts of the southeast with wind gusts of up to 70 miles an hour. As the Northeast cleans up after rounds of storms pummeled the region Saturday. Whoa! Heavy rain flooding New York City streets and cars.
Bro, this is insane.
People trying to wade through knee-high water in Manhattan. And concert goers left disappointed after singer Noah Kahan canceled his first night at Citi Field, citing inclement weather.
I don't want a refund.
2 tornadoes touching down in Pennsylvania. This video showing what appears to be a funnel cloud. Trees coming down in the Baltimore area. And a family in Maryland saying lightning started a fire at their home. This all coming after days of dangerous weather. Deadly flooding in Texas, Ohio, and in Utah, where a firefighter, his wife, and 3 of their children were found dead at a campground. A lightning strike in that state also killing a hiker. And in the Midwest, Canadian wildfire smoke still not easing up, where air quality remains at unhealthy levels. Minneapolis, Detroit, and Chicago all ranking in the top 10 of the worst air quality cities in the world. That tropical depression is set to become Tropical Storm Bertha, and Texas and Louisiana could see impacts from that later in the week. Back to you.
All right, Valerie, thank you. Let's get a closer look now at what to expect this week with your morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Andrea Romero is with us in studio. Hey, Andrea, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. And we continue to monitor that growing threat, basically that's impacting the Midwest and also the Great Lakes. We can see here all these storms. They're going to be moving through that region today into tonight. We have this cold front that's going to be sweeping through, bringing that torrential rainfall and that severe weather threat. So looking at the risks, we're talking about damaging hail, wind gusts of over 75 miles per hour, and a few strong tornadoes possible, especially in this enhanced risk area, specifically over parts of Wisconsin. Now that threat will move eastward tomorrow as the front targets the East Coast and the Ohio Valley. Heavy rain could lead to flooding in some locations, and we could also have the risk of damaging hail, tornadoes, but the main risk will be straight line wind damage with gusts of over 75 miles per hour possible in this location. So aside from the threat of the severe weather, we also have that heavy rainfall with locally up to 3 inches that could bring some flooding into many locations. As far as the air quality alerts, 47 million people continue to be impacted here in parts of the Great Lakes and also the Midwest as well. We're expecting that wildfire smoke to continue to impact that region. But the good news is that although the air quality is still unhealthy, the numbers are a lot better than what we saw last week. Some of these numbers were in the 700s. Now they're in the 100s, 200s. In Chicago, we had 400, and now we're in like closer to 150. Now here is tropical depression number 2 that we're monitoring here in the Gulf Coast. The conditions are going to be deteriorating along the Florida Panhandle today. The system itself is 120 miles south of Panama City. It's moving northwest at around 3 miles per hour. Its sustained winds are 35 miles per hour, so it's expected by this afternoon to become possibly Tropical Storm Bertha, and we can see those tropical storm watches extending from the Florida Panhandle into Alabama. So this system will continue to organize over the Gulf. Bands of rains will be hitting the Florida coast and will be meandering and gaining strength as it heads over towards Louisiana. So we have a lot to track this week. Back to you guys.
All right, Andrea, thank you so much. Well, police are investigating a burglary scare at the home of NFL star Saquon Barkley. Officials say Barkley and his family were all inside the house when the intruders broke in on Saturday. No one was hurt, though. It's the latest in a string of incidents where thieves target the homes of professional athletes. NBC News national correspondent Morgan Chesky has the details.
A brazen break-in at the home of NFL star Saquon Barkley. The suspects gaining entry around 5 a.m. Saturday, while police say the Eagles running back and his family were all home.
All the occupants of the house were physically okay, obviously a little unsettled, as anybody would be, but no one was harmed.
Authorities say the individuals fled the location by the time officers arrived, and that it doesn't appear anything was taken from the residence, adding they're now investigating whether this white SUV is tied to the burglars.
We know there's more than one, but we're still trying to determine how many were involved.
The incident appears to be the latest in a string of high-profile break-ins nationwide. This 2024 surveillance footage shows thieves at NBA player Bobby Portis's house.
I had a home invasion, and they took most of my prized possessions.
Chilean authorities returning 6 watches to actor Keanu Reeves last year, including one from the set of John Wick with an inscription on the back. After his own break-in, Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow isn't taking any chances with his coveted Heisman Trophy.
I had it locked up in a safe place for all you robbers out there who are getting any ideas.
The NFL, NBA, and FBI have previously warned athletes to update security systems, install cameras, and keep valuables in a safe.
Or much more to come here on Morning News Now. Federal health officials now walking back tests that linked a parasite outbreak to a lettuce supplier. What you need to know before you head to the grocery store.
But at first, a new era of leadership in the United Kingdom. More on the country's new prime minister and the challenges he faces next. We'll be right back.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.